A thread that should be evident throughout Exit 425 is the idea of thoughtful, proactive development in the rural-urban fringe that is Curtis, Clarington, and North Durham. Sometimes this development tantalizes local politicians. Some people suggest that it is in their own best interest. Some just seem to like having more development than others. Welcome to Exit 425, current affairs, information, and education that goes where you want to go. You have found us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Medium, Google, Apple, Spotify, or Anchor. Please like and subscribe and be sure to join our Facebook group. I am Steve Ray. Stop Sprawl Durham is a new voice to many of us and has been popping up on social media with its message that unbridled, typical development of land, prime agricultural land particularly, is not a good thing. They reference the issues of food security and the fact that no one has ever had property taxes drop, even though there would appear to be more people and businesses to share the load. Today, Deb Melohe joins me on Exit 425 to begin a hopefully ongoing conversation about development in Durham and specifically Curtis and Clarington and what Stop Sprawl Durham is all about. Deb, welcome. I'm looking forward to this and an ongoing conversation.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me, and I would love to come back.
What is the origin of Stop Sprawl? It appears to be a movement across the GTA.
Yes. So Stop Sprawl Durham is a group of individuals, concerned citizens, and groups from across Durham region. And we met initially through the Yours to Protect movement, which was hosted by Environmental Defense. But Yours to Protect is a specific larger coalition of environmental advocacy organizations from across the province. For example, the David Suzuki Foundation is one, and I've been a volunteer with that organization since 2014.
So there is some sort of alignment with environmental defense. What about the Greens of Ontario?
So we are nonpartisan, and we may share some of the values that the Greens might share with us, but we draw resources and support from other Stop Sprawl groups. But we are very much independent and an organic collection of local voices. So we have people in Ajax, Whitby, in Brock, and hopefully we'll get some people from Clarington as well. No one is what I'm trying to say is no one is directing Stop Sprawl from outside Durham region, and we're not affiliated with any political parties, but we will amplify and celebrate any local leaders who are demonstrating wise stewardship and visionary decision making.
And some people on social media think that you are anti-construction and anti-development. Can you clarify?
Absolutely. So we're not NIMBYs, we are YIMBYs. That means yes in my backyard. Affordability is an issue, but we're navigating a health crisis, climate crisis, and a biodiversity crisis. So we want to find that sweet spot to address all these interrelated issues. And what the opportunity is to address this through the MCR process, the Municipal Comprehensive Review. This is the process that will determine whether our current urban boundary will stay where it is or will move out and create more development. So what we're advocating for is what's called a complete community. It means that every neighborhood, every area has sufficient density in it, which means jobs, services, and people to allow everybody to access those services without car dependency. It's also called the 15-minute city. And it was originated by Anne Hidalgo, who is the mayor of Paris. She came up with this concept, and it is being embraced by many countries and municipalities throughout the world. So we have about 10,000 acres of vacant land already within our urban boundary, dedicated to future development. So we don't need to expand that boundary. So we want to increase the density to 80 people and jobs per hectare. And that number is in order to support transit, a frequent bus route or any other type of transit.
Right, because certain densities, in order to really maximize the benefit or the efficiency of public transit, you need to have certain population densities that it services, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Right. So does this relate to the fifth option that I've seen on Stop Sprawl and that, I selected on the Envision Durham survey?
Wonderful. Glad that you put it to number one. Yeah.
What is that fifth option?
So scenario 5 was the option that calls for no new land. So scenario 5 will not expand the urban boundary in order to accommodate our future housing needs. So, while we have no urban boundary expansion for housing, the employment scenarios within scenario 5, within the survey, they did ask for more land to expand. So when Stop Sprawl Durham proposes that we ask Regional Council to adopt a modified Scenario 5, which will use the only existing lands for housing, but also wants to accommodate the employment forecasts within the current urban boundary as well.
Now, I mentioned, if I mentioned that Regional Chair John Henry said on an earlier interview with Exit 425 that the land protected as Greenbelt in Durham is sufficient land to protect from development, what would you say in response to that?
Okay, that's not accurate. Now, Canada has less than 1% of Class 1 farmland, which is the best farmland you can have. And 42% of that is in the Greater Golden Horseshoe. So we do need to protect this as a precious resource and keep it as a commons for everyone, for future generations. So the best soils are generally south of the Oak Ridges moraine, and that climactic zone is moderated by Lake Ontario. So the prime growing regions are not a perfect match with the Greenbelt. So the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Food has been working for years to develop a prime agricultural system for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. So basically, for example, in Pickering, there was an MZO or a ministerial zoning order that wanted to develop the Duffins Creek area. So this land wasn't in the Greenbelt. It was in the area between the Greenbelt and the urban boundary, which is sometimes referred to as White Belt. So these are the lands that are threatened, and these are the ones that we need to protect as well. So we were able to stop the MZO for Duffins Creek, and also the one for Carruthers Creek in Ajax. We want to keep, it's not only farmland, it's also the wetlands that are important, because they're not only important for growing food, they're important for sequestering greenhouse gas emissions. So these natural systems are carbon sinks, and they also filter our water.
A couple of misunderstandings that people have. One is that we think of the wheat belt in Canada as amazing farmland. It's good for those crops, but it's not the same quality farmland that we have in southern Ontario. And the other part is that we think of the rainforest all the time as the lungs of the world and the lungs of the certain ecozones, but we forget or don't know that the wetlands are really the lungs of the northern latitudes, along with all the great forests that we have up here. What you said, that they're tremendous sinks for greenhouse gas, that's huge. They are one of our lungs, a very wet lung, but it's a lung. And people often look at the wetlands as unusable land or land that needs to be fixed, and that's so not accurate. So, is all greenbelt land protected from development?
So, I mean, it's constantly under threat. For example, the whole issue of the 413, that is going to interfere with, it's going to cross greenbelt areas. It's going to certainly, have impacts for climate and biodiversity. It's going to invite more congestion and development, and it's really not worth it because it will only cut 30 seconds off the commute time. So it's an ongoing battle. It really is. When in 2018 there was Bill 66. I don't know if you can recall, but it was a bill that was going was designed to circumvent municipal decision making in land decisions, land use decisions, and again, organizations spoke out, people spoke out in their areas, and then that sort of was dropped. But it's come around again, in all these issues such as the 413, and of course in the MCR process. So this process that we're going through now, deciding where we're going to develop and how we're going to develop, it's supposed to be locked in for the next 30 years. And I'm wondering, why do we need to lock in for 30 years? Is it perhaps because developers want these decisions made to ensure that they have a future, and that they can profit for the next 30 years? So it's really important for people to get involved, to go to our website, read the information there, and to speak out, especially for the delegation on May 3rd.
And take the opportunity to speak to your municipal officials. And I will be interviewing Mayor Foster from Clarington this week for a post on Exit 425. And so, a question about this might get into our conversation, and so we can hear that response from him. Thank you for all that information. So Durham should have learned a lot from what has happened in Fulton, Peel, Hamilton, Wentworth, Niagara, York, all the other places around the GTA and GTHA, as it's called now, the golden horseshoe, where all this development has taken place already, and that we're kind of catching up with at this point. Do you think we've learned from them, or do we still have an opportunity to get out ahead of this development?
So it's not too late. We would like people to delegate to the May 3rd meeting, which is the meeting before the region will make their final decision. The message we want to get across is that we have lots of land already assigned to future growth that we can use within our urban boundary. And we need every inch of natural land available that we have already to mitigate the climate crisis. So expanding out of our boundary is going to be a huge cost to taxpayers. Even if you're not an environmentalist, you should be concerned about the costs of what providing infrastructure to these areas is going to cost. Not only that, but the climate impacts. If we sprawl outward, what will be the costs in terms of healthcare services because of impacts? What will be the cost for added infrastructure repairs, for example, for windstorms, ice storms, that sort of thing. So these are important things that we need to focus on. And please, if you've never spoken at a regional meeting, please, we can help you. We can give you the resources and give you the guidance that you need, and visit our website.
And I'll put links, and I've been putting information about Stop Sprawl Durham as I've received it. I've posted it on the Facebook page, sorry, in the Facebook group for Exit 425. And I'll continue to do that. But, we'll get some links for Stop Sprawl Durham. But it's one of the easiest websites to find because it's just that Stop Sprawl Durham will get you there, right? So, and
Exactly.
lots of information and very well presented. So that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the region did vote to be a leader on climate change. They declared a climate emergency. So we believe that the number one priority of this land use plan is to protect the environment. I do want to add that that doesn't necessarily mean high-rise buildings. What's called gentle density is basically using the land that we have already in order to build density through low-rise multiplex buildings. And so if people think that, building up is automatically going to mean 80-story towers, it's not the case. But you'll see that on the website. There's some examples there of what's called the missing middle. So keep that in mind.
And there's some great videos on YouTube that people could watch and listen to as well that give more background on this. And I was watching a good one. It's linked with Stop Sprawl Hamilton, I think, and environmental defense, and talking about all these issues and helping to understand kind of the economics and some of the numbers behind the estimates and how the estimates that are given to justify the expansion of urban limits are really overestimates and more than what is needed. Certainly, if this fifth scenario is selected, the idea of higher density and maximizing the use of the land in the urban area already. So, Deb, thanks for joining me today on Exit 425. I appreciate you taking the time. It's great information. This is the stuff that's right in our backyard, literally, right? It's where we live. And,
exactly.
It affects why we moved to these areas in this part of Ontario in the first place. And it really moves to or connects with our overall well-being. To be able to live here. And I think most of us, as an area becomes busier and busier, we get a little more maybe frantic or just not as relaxed. And it makes us want to move further away from where we are, thus enhancing the sprawl. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. I wanted to mention, you mentioned YouTube. There's a series called Not Just Bikes that has some wonderful videos about the way urban planning is being done in some parts of the world where they have complete communities, where you can walk to the grocery store, walk to the doctor's office, or bicycle to a park. So what we're talking about when we want density is not just talking about housing. We want to integrate all these elements of a livable city and bring them together. I think it's exciting. I think it would be wonderful to live in a place like that. So we hope that people will, again, go to the website, will choose to delegate, and maybe we can realize that vision for our region.
And then look up information about this May 3rd Region of Durham meeting. And is there a deadline for registering for that?
So it would be the week before it would be the deadline to submit to delegate. If you have any questions about that, please send us an email through the website, and we can assist you in delegating. You don't really need to present a slideshow. You can just speak from your heart, and everyone gets 5 minutes to speak. So it's pretty short and painless.
It's the essence of democracy in things that are affecting us right where we live. It's not some esoteric kind of thing. It's pretty real, and this is where this is where it is, right? And this is you mentioned you had watched Sarah Gabrielle Barron, and she talked about how municipal politics is where it's at, and that this is being involved at the right spot. So it's awesome. I'll post whatever information I find on the Exit 425 Facebook page and in the Facebook group, and also on Medium. But we'll also have updates here on the audio podcasts, and that always goes along with video. So once again, Deb, thanks so much for joining me today on Exit 425.
Thank you. Have a great evening.